Good evening. It's John and Felicia Edmerson with our flickering light all the way from Pasadena, California. And we are at the Figueroa congregation in Los Angeles. Our minister is Brother Vincent E. Hawkins. Our address is 455 West 57th Street, LA, California, 90037. And this is a part of our second quarter series on the family. We're calling this LA Family Life. And what we've done and what we're doing this second quarter every Monday is tackle a particular subject or topic that we believe is relevant and needful. And I'm so appreciative to have with us some of our dearest friends. So in just a moment, we're going to take a peek and hear from them as you've just kind of seen them quickly. So let's bring them back, and we have Daryl Winrow all the way from the great state of Texas. We have Geraldine Fox, who as well is from the great state of Texas. And then we have my absolute favorite doctor that I will never see, my sister Antherica, who's an OBGYN out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So we tease each other about that, but we're so glad to have them with us on tonight. So thank you so much to our distinguished panel. Sweetie, you want to say hello?
No, thank you. Thanks again to all of you. I love seeing you, love hearing from you.
All right. So we'll get started this evening. We have some questions that we're going to look at. And as you can see with this nice PowerPoint presentation that Felicia's put together, and here's some information on our congregation as well. And now we're going to start looking at the questions. So question number one. Now, I know that parenting and being a child, and even as an adult child, can be somewhat of a challenging topic. There are many adult children today who are in therapy because of some of the things that they experienced as children. And I don't say that to make light of it. I say that because that's true.
Reality.
That's reality. So I thought at least over this series, we could at least spend some time talking about some of those challenges that we experienced and how we're getting through it, how we've gotten through it. Now, before this first question, let me remind you that our comment option is working. So if you're watching us and can give us a shout out from wherever you are, or maybe you want to ask a question or a follow-up question, we want to encourage you to do so. So let's start with Daryl with our first question, and it's just more of an informal discussion. So parenting is a great challenge. How do you feel about the parenting you experience? Do you have a sense of why your parents did what they did? So any part of that would be great, Daryl. What do you think?
So I would say just in regards to my experience, looking back, it wasn't so bad. Looking back, it wasn't so bad. Um, I would say they did what they did in regards to how they brought me up based upon, their upbringing. Maybe it was something they particularly didn't like about their upbringing, or maybe it was something that they enjoyed about their upbringing. But I feel like they took a little bit of, the negatives and turned them into positives. And I feel like, my experience through all of that really, made me who I am today. I don't claim to be perfect. I don't claim to be, the model child by far. by far. And anybody who knows me will tell you that. But I will tell you that I am a person of faith, and I wouldn't have the faith that I have if it were not for my parents instilling that within me.
Mm-hmm. Geraldine and Thurk, please feel free to hop right on in.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
would okay. I totally agree with what Daryl is saying. I feel good about the parenting that I received. My parents were able to expose my siblings and I to a broad range of exposures that really helped develop our sense of who we are, and through that our values and our appreciation for God, life, and others. And of course, while I was going through it, was it always the best thing? And did I always say, hip, hip, hooray? Probably not. Now, looking back, I am eternally grateful for everything that was put in place that really helped mold us into who we are.
Yeah, I definitely think that Geraldine and Daryl's answer is really a composite of what I'm thinking. I definitely agree. I think there's a lot of positive that comes from how we were raised. And I think one of the things that I really think about is that my parents were very clear about what they believed. And so, in a time such as this, it's important to lay that foundation for your children. And I think also at a very young age, when I went to various schools, and initially when we moved to Los Angeles, I was at Normandy Christian School. So and most people knew us as the minister's child. But then when I went to high school, I went to a private independent school where liberal thinking was very much the environment. So I made it very clear that I was a Christian, and people just knew that about me. But I think that came from the comfort that we gained from being within our household as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now my sister is pulling on one of my triggers. My parents sent her to private school and sent me to public school. So I was hoping I wasn't going to bring that up tonight, but let me just get that out of the way. How frustrated I was. But anyway, all right, good.
Here we go.
Nothing wrong with public schools.
Hi, Daryl.
Nothing wrong with public schools.
Right. We're the product of public schools, but I do get what you're saying, because all of us, my siblings and I, are vary in ages, and we always joke about how each of us, how we truly experience different parents because of our ages. So
yes, I know that's right.
To play.
Yeah, we need our younger brother on here, John Gamaliel,
Oh, you are
to,
sure
to
right
address
about that.
issue.
Right.
Yes.
To tell the real truth, Dr.
Right.
Lane.
Yes. I think my parents must have been tired by the time he was
Oh my!
a teenager.
Say that again. Oh my goodness. So it sounds like part of what was important to our parents was what I'm going to call tonight values transmission, in that our parents tried as best they could to instill in us values that were important to them, so that those values would then be important to us. And that's a little different from parenting today. Parenting today is much more suggestive. Well, I request that you do this, and I request that you do that. And I did not come up in a situation where I really had a lot of choice. Now, I think at the time I may have been a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't like I was rebellious per se. Looking back on it, it was just more of maybe some of the typical feelings that you'd have as a child growing up. But as an adult, I'm so grateful, because those values, they're my floor now. They're my foundation. It's kind of what I rely on, what my anchor is, and I'm eternally grateful. I am concerned, though, that with some of the counsel that adult children get, I just don't know if that's always conveyed. I despite my challenges, you know, I just don't feel good about vilifying or demonizing my folks. You know, they really tried, I believe, the best they could to give me the highest level of parenting that they had available to them. With my particular parents, they were the new college graduates out of both of their families. So, in terms of education, in terms of being exposed to certain concepts, in terms of being exposed to certain walks of life, certain occupations, traveling, that was all brand spanking new. And I look back on that now, and I'm so grateful that they had the courage to kind of reach beyond their past and try to be new and different. So, did you find some of that values transmission in your family coming up? And I just want to make sure that I'm reading everybody correctly.
I certainly did. My parents both came from large families, and they were the oldest in their family. So my father came from a family of 7 siblings, 6 including him make 7, and my mom 10 including her make 11. And they were both at the older level of their sibling chain. And I think that also helped mold who they are, because not only were an example for us, but they were setting the stage for younger siblings coming behind them. And I just think that seeing them work hard and break barriers, my father, of course, was the first at a lot of things that he did, 28 years military, and, you know, was the first African-American to receive several awards. You know, my mom was the first African-American to work at Dallas Air Force Base. And just seeing them do so many things and still instill Jesus and God in us all the time, but make sure that we were globally molded as well. I think did a lot for who we are and how it shaped us.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And John, you probably remember when our parents built a new home in Chickasha, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the first Black family in this really upper scale neighborhood. And that has left a very lasting impression on my mind as to the significance of that accomplishment at such a young age. I remember going out there while it was being built. I remember while at the same time, Dad was also building a new building for the church as well. And so we were able to just witness the vision of our parents. And even if they did not have everything that they may have wanted when they were younger, they really try to give us a vision that there's so much more out there, that life can be better, and that we can really direct our destiny from that sense, just by having a vision and moving and acting on it. I mean, I still remember marching from the old building to the new building. Right. I remember the night we signed and closed on the new house, our personal home, and then we were able to sleep in our new home. And it was a brand new built, custom built home. I mean, that was just, it still drives a lot of what I do today in regards to the visions I have of what I like to do professionally and just in the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would, piggyback on what everyone has said so far. One of the things that, stood out to me, just in regards to the drive of my parents, I never really knew we were broke. It was just foreign to me. But looking back on it, we have, we're eating government cheese. I'm thinking government cheese is the best thing ever.
That's good. That's good.
That type of stuff didn't register to me at the time. But it registers to me as an adult, like, okay, government cheese, that's government assistance. I never
Right.
knew of these things until I became an adult. And, I say that just to say, like, they did a good job of sheltering us, through those tough times
Mhm.
so that, when we did get, it was
Right.
later in life, but once they did see a little increase, it was standard for us.
Mhm.
Mhm.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. What I detect in all of us is what I call or what I've learned is intellectual humility.
Mhm.
In that cognitively there's some deep appreciation and gratitude and reverence for so much of what we've learned and um, how that's contributed into shaping the person we are today. So I want to encourage those of our listening audience, who may be struggling with some of the things that you experienced. I love part of what Daryl said. I too had some experience with that cheese and canned orange juice and uh, powdered milk. To this day, I just can't do it. Um, but I'm so appreciative. I'm just so appreciative for all that. And some of this you may not really appreciate it until you get to a certain point in your own maturity.
Mhm.
Where you can, like Daryl said, some of these things I didn't really realize until I became an adult. And that's humility. So when you see your parents and you see what it was like, to keep food on the table and to have quality meals, 7 days a week, multiple mouths to feed, and car note and house note and light bill and new clothes, school clothes, and lunch at school. So it was just a lot. So thank you. All right, good. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next question. So the next question, number two, is what two words? And we'll start with you, Therica. What two words could you use to characterize or describe your home life as a child? And did it change as you changed or as you grew? So, what two words could you use to characterize your your home life?
I would probably include the word the church. The church was very much a central part of our life on so many levels. We've talked a little bit about the spiritual aspect, but even just the daily work of the church. I remember spending the weekend, we're riding the bus, we're at the church building, we're cleaning, we're sometimes we're just playing around at the church. But it was just very much just a part of our lives. Everything was organized and scheduled around when we needed to be at church. So that would be one word. And then the other word is just being supportive in terms of what our interests were, what we wanted to do. I think all of us as siblings are very different. We have different interests and talents. And I think that they gave us that space to really grow in that skill, in that talent. And that was a way that they showed love to us, I believe, in knowing that, hey, Antherica enjoys school, she enjoys learning, she wants to be a doctor. Let me put her in a position where she can definitely achieve that goal. And I think she did that in many ways for each of us, and really just recognized how we can be successful.
Gerald and Daryl, what are your two words?
I think my two words would be loving and structured. So I grew up in a very loving, supportive environment. My parents always encouraged us to be the best and do the best at church, at school, at home, wherever we were, and they were always very supportive of whatever we wanted to do. And they fostered a loving home where we loved God, we loved each other. And to this day, I believe because of that foundation of that love, each of us are now fostering that same love within our families and within our families as a whole together, where we always make sure that we come together, we check on each other, we're there for each other. Just a lot of things that you don't really see in society right now. But we're just, because of that foundation that we had, anything can happen. We may not even, talk for a minute, but we are always there for each other because of that. And so it was just very loving and instilled so many life lessons and did it in such a positive way. I remember my dad is 28 years retired military. So that brings in a lot of the structure. But one thing I remember when he was stationed in California, um, we would drive from California to Texas to Fort Worth. My dad was born and raised Stop Six, Fort Worth. And so we would drive from California to Fort Worth, and my mom would fry up all this chicken and, make all of these cakes. And, we would stop all along the way and have a picnic. And so my brothers and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so great. We're so loving. But truthfully, it was during the 60s, and my dad just didn't want to go to a back door, but he was shielding us. So we had a sense of family and love. That's all we knew, right? And so I think it's those sort of life lessons that now that we're old enough to really see the sacrifices, but the love was still instilled in us. It's huge, and it's those sort of attributes that I really want to make sure are transferred to my children and grandchildren. And so our house was very structured. My dad's 28 years retired military plus the church. So my brothers and I grew up in a very structured environment. Of course, they think that mine wasn't as structured as theirs. I think it was more structured because not only did I have my parents, I had an older brother and a younger brother who thought they were my parents. So the dating scene for me was, if you got past my father and my brothers, you deserve to come sit in my living room. But anyway, but I thank God now for that structure because it has also helped shape me and mold me and my siblings into who we are.
So, Sister Fox and Sister Lane have both given illustrations that have triggered thoughts within my mind. But if I had to characterize my home when I was a child, it would be similar to what they stated. I would use the words love and law. Of course, my mom was very nurturing. My father showed love in a different way, but in regards to, like Sister Fox said, there was discipline there. There was a lot of structure there. And we didn't have a choice on whether or not we were going to church or not. We didn't have a choice, about Bible study. We were at every service. If we were playing team sports, we could not go on trips that, ended on Sunday. If the team was doing a tournament, in another city, we couldn't go because it would conflict with, us going to church. And so a lot of that, is what I experienced through my childhood, just in regards to the law aspect of it. I kind of touched on the love aspect just in regards to the vision, their drive to work harder to get to a better place in life, their drive just to give us, fulfill needs within our lives, whether it's food or clothing, like Brother Emerson, touched on. We experienced all of that. Even to this day, sometimes having conversations with my father, I still feel like I'm under the law. I have to remind myself, wait a minute, I got my own family.
Right.
I'm wrong. Watch out.
Way, he has a way when it's that deep voice. Think you're in trouble, like
Right, exactly.
Daryl, my father can just look at me and I'm like, yes, sir.
Right. All the time.
I get it.
Time.
It's a good thing though.
Oh yeah, most definitely. He'll look at me and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. He'll look at me and I'm like, okay, what do you need done?
Right. All right. Question number 3. Considering your own parenting style, and Thurka, you can start this out for us. How would you rank yourself in conjunction with where your parents were at roughly the same time? So we're talking about parenting styles, comparing like where you are to kind of where they were at the same time.
Ooh, that's a tough question. Let's see. I think my parenting style is different. So it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. But I think in many ways we're probably pretty equal in terms of what we're trying to convey to our daughter. But if you want to say, like, I don't know if you're wanting a number like between 0 and 10 or something, but I think if my parents, if their standard was the 10, I might be trying to achieve maybe around the 7 range is what I'm trying to do, and in terms of what I'm trying to do now. But my goal is to get to where they were on many levels. But I'm also trying to also expose my daughter to some new types of parenting styles that maybe I didn't receive when I was younger as well. So yeah, so it's a little bit different, but I think it's definitely a work in progress. That's probably what I'd say. Is definitely a work in progress, and I appreciate so much all that my parents have done. I mean, they truly have made me who I am today, and I've learned so much in terms of just those values that we talked about earlier. But yeah, I think it's for me, my parenting style is a nice mixture of what I really loved from growing up, and then what I'd like to see in my daughter that maybe I felt was just missing as I was a little bit younger. But yeah, just a fantastic foundation and a model to begin with, for sure.
Okay. Yes. Great. Geraldine or Daryl?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I feel like in regards to ranking, I'm probably coming in at a smooth 5 out of 10. I would say that, my situation is a little bit different. My family is what people would say is a broken home. Where, I have my kids 2 or 3 weekends out the month. My wife has a daughter from a prior relationship, and then I have a younger son from another relationship. And so our dynamic is a little bit different than what I was, brought up with. And so I would say that, I still feel like, I'm navigating through, parenthood. I would want the same structure that I received as a kid, where it's, love, discipline, or whatever the case may be. But I found that, my voice doesn't reign as heavy as my father's voice, just in regards to the discipline aspect. It's a different dynamic. Whereas I would, try to be the authoritarian, raise my voice, threatened with belts, whippings, all that. And what I found is that it kind of drove a wedge between my children and myself. And so, as we've come, to this point later in life, uh, instead of offering, threats of discipline, it's more so conversations now. We have conversations about, how they feel about a certain thing, how they reacted to a certain situations versus how they should have reacted, things to that nature. And so it's a work in progress. I continually pray about it daily, but it's something that is always on my mind, and something that I'm always, trying to sharpen, or trying to not so much perfect, but at least,
Do
uh,
better.
at least a little bit more, proficient with it.
Yeah.
Wonderful,
Right.
wonderful. Let me just take a break, Geraldine, before you jump in here. We have a couple of comments. Brother Hawkins says, "Good evening to everyone." We certainly appreciate our minister giving a shout out. Sister Mallet said, "Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for the family hour." And then Sister Hawkins as well is giving you a shout out, Sister Geraldine. So we appreciate them taking some time tonight to say hello. All right, Geraldine, why don't you go ahead and continue this train of thought?
Okay, I think I'm right there with the other two. I think I'm on par with my parents, but I hold what my parents did with us in such high esteem. It's like I'm climbing up that mountain, right? But so like on a scale, of 1 to 10, maybe 9, and I think and maybe getting there. I think what has truly made a difference in my life is I have taken the best of what they have given to me. And I talk to my mom. I'm very close with my parents. So I talk to my mom, and we talk openly and honestly about things. And she says, "Well, maybe I really shouldn't have done this way. So why don't you try it this way?" And so if I am getting close to that 10, it's because I have her constant support, and we are both open and honest about our my upbringing and my raising. And I think one thing that has really helped me is I've taken the best of everything and then I use it per child. So I don't really parent, there's an overall parenting that my husband and I have, but I parent each child according to who that child is. So, for instance, one of my children responded very well to not sparing that rod. So I didn't spare that rod. They responded well to it. I had one child that if I didn't let her read for a certain period of time, that was worse than any beating she could ever get, right? And then I had one child that I just needed to talk to because he constantly wants to know why this is happening, what this is happening. And, based on my upbringing, it's happening because I said so, right? But,
Right.
but because I knew who she is and what type of child she is, because I was very much like that. I got popped a lot because I always had to say another word. And so because I saw that in her, I communicate more with her. But had I not had that upbringing and background and constant conversation with my mother, I don't think that I could have parlayed all of those skills into being the parents that we are.
Mhm.
So
My my parenting, and Fee, please feel free to jump in. My parenting took a major shift upward when I took a class. I was working in Cincinnati with a nonprofit, and we work with men and child support. And I probably need to have a podcast on that because that was just eye opening. But one of the sessions we did is we had a session on brain development.
mm,
And that's where I learned that boys in particular don't really develop that part of their brain that can control and that where there's a lot of self-management until about 25. And that was just like, I was just so in shock, and I was embarrassed really that I didn't know a little more about that aspect. So with some things, I would think that my kids are being um, defiant. There was maybe a little of that, but part of that is that part of their brain that develops that whole stopping mechanism that controls behavior and keeps people's mouth closed. It just hadn't kicked in yet. And I think overnight I tried to become kinder and gentler and more understanding about you know who I am, who we are. Do you remember when I had that class and we talked about it? Um, did you see any kind of difference, or what's your thought about that?
I mean, it's probably so. Like I said, um, you know, you don't have to answer your children. You don't have to discipline them always with the rod, like Geraldine said, and that's not always needed. But at the same time, you still want to correct them. But I think you learn some better ways to correct the behavior that was not accepted. So yes, I think it was helpful.
Yeah, like Fee was the oldest grandbaby, and she has like, I don't know, like maybe 10 or 12 aunts and uncles. So she could do no wrong. Oh my goodness. Just perfect. And everybody just catered to her. Oh, and she's just the perfect child. And whereas, I came up in an environment where, I was definitely encouraged, but when I didn't do what I was supposed to do, there was definitely a great sense of correction. Now, I do think, as I think about my own parenting style, that my parents went a little too far. I don't, like Geraldine, I wish I'd had maybe an environment where it was more conversational. However, I understand now the risk, because if you're not strong enough, then your child is going to miss some of those valuable lessons that may save them when they reach adolescence. Right. So I definitely understand the risk. But two things, that whole brain thing, and then me just thinking about, okay, well, if I'd had more of a conversation, maybe I wouldn't be as strong authoritatively. And of course, that's wishful thinking. But that's just some comparing and contrasting between our style. I'm, and Therica, if you had to look back, I mean, I don't remember you ever really getting yelled at. Did you? I mean, I don't know that I can ever remember you really getting a spanking. Did you get a spanking?
I may have. I mean, not, I don't know, like maybe a couple of times, but I just don't think it was necessary for me to get the point. I think that was part of the issue. Yeah. So I think what Geraldine was saying is so important in terms of really recognizing what each child needs. And so I think for our daughter now, when we've been raising her, we didn't use whooping, spanking, none of that at all. Everything was about trying to understand what was going on and then having conversations about it. And we still do that now, because I think it's important for us to I really want her to be seen as a person. And I do recognize when we were younger, like you said, that structure, being strict, was very, very important. I mean, they were really laying a foundation. So I do understand that. But I think we were missing just a little bit of them really seeing us as a person and what do I need? And maybe I do have thoughts about this particular situation. But when you're growing up in that type of household, you don't have thoughts. You need to think like we're thinking, and there's no debate or conversation about it. So I understand the why behind it for sure. Now I think that's why we are who we are today. But
Mm-hmm.
I am appreciating that conversational parenting style that I have with my daughter as well.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this though, I do think that we have to be careful because there is a fine line. I do think that some of that structure and some of that um, authority that needs to be set in because I do think today that a lot of people are too much their child's friend and not the parent. So I do think that there's a fine line, and I just think that it's staying in prayer, to find that balance, but
Right.
still making sure that the authority is there in a loving way.
Yeah, I think it's important not to use authority to minimize a person and make them feel almost
Right.
humiliated in their discipline. And I'm not saying that I ever felt that way, but I do see examples out there of that where I see parents being so authoritative, but then also they just tear down their children uh,
Right.
in the process. And it is important to me for my daughter to understand that if I do discipline her, that she's really understanding why I'm doing that. And there's consequences. If you don't do the right thing, there is going to be a consequence. So,
Right.
so yeah, I just think it's important that we do have that balance for sure.
Right. And I think you hit on a great thing there when you said because a lot of people take authority as belittling and putting down, and it's not that. God has authority over us, but He never puts us down or
Amen.
shames us. He loves us and
Yes.
unconditionally and builds us up when we read His Word and always does things for us and provides grace and mercy. And I think it's that type of authority that we have to get to with their children and not the crack and whip authority that people think of when they see the word. So I think a lot of time that word is misconstrued because I certainly feel that we had authority from my parents, but I think it was that love and that grace and mercy that was provided to us, and that's certainly where I want to go. So I certainly see what you're saying, and I think it's good for people not to look at that word as the crack and whip, but look at it as authority that God has on us and that we then transcend to our children.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But one thing about you all, you three or you four, that you are from your dad was a preacher, so you had everything membership. The members looked at you. You were in that fish, what we call that fish bowl. So, do you think that plays a part in your parenting skills with your own children, as opposed to how your parents reared you all?
I do think in a way, thinking about how others viewed us
Mm-hmm.
as young people, as teenagers. I think there was this overarching thought, even if it was subconscious, that we need to think about what would the church think,
Mm-hmm.
what would other members think, would they feel like we were being good Christians if we participated in XYZ, or if I'm out, I need to remember who I am. I'm an Edmerson. I'm my dad's a minister. So I think that definitely came across. Uh, I felt that in my upbringing as the only female in a household of brothers. So I think I definitely felt that. I don't know if you did, John.
Uh, I think I enjoyed some of the attention of being, the preacher's son. And I look back on that now, and that at least gave me a leg up, in terms of my visibility and potential notoriety. And I really tried to embrace it. And that's the good with the bad. When you do stuff at that level, it gets amplified. And even if you make the same mistake, it's like the whole "you should have known better" and "we've taught you better than this." And looking back, you're exactly right. I knew all too well that whatever it was, the behavior or the decision was, that I shouldn't have done it. So I tried to embrace it. When I went to Southwestern, though, I think I got the opportunity to see a myriad of responses to being a PK. And one of the reasons I'm so thankful for the school and for Dr. Evans, God rest his soul, and was just some of the experiences that I had with other preachers' kids who looked at things similarly and differently. And I'm appreciative of the continuum. We all love the Lord in our own way, and we all serve the Lord in our own way. But I could tell some were a little more comfortable, with certain lifestyles and certain decisions, and not a lot of judgment on my end, but I could just tell, okay, all right, so this is certainly a challenge, challenge for some. And Daryl, our dads are from Oklahoma. So I know that whole Southern thing really played a principal role in how they looked at parenting, the traditional role of the father. It's the Bible Belt. So did you find that those things were important as well in your home?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I felt it on a daily, to be honest. It was something that was constantly brought up. And just, Sister Lane mentioned something in reference to, I think, saying something along the lines of, your last name, your last name, your last name. Well, whenever I would get in trouble, and believe me, I led the family in getting in trouble. Whenever I would get in trouble, my father would discipline me, but his words would always be along the lines of, it's not just about you, but it's about your last name. It's about you being a Winrow. It's about, you representing the family. And, at the time, I may have been, under the influence of, okay, maybe it is, about perception of, what the congregation thinks, or this, that, and the other. But again, as I came into knowledge and grew in my understanding, and, as an example, when I was at my lowest low of what, people may have thought, or, assumptions that may have happened due to my, getting in trouble, I found out that it wasn't about that. It was genuine love. And I think that's one of the things that, I appreciate the most, coming up in the Winrow household is that, it may have been shown differently. It may have been, at least on one side, it may have been shown differently, but it was all love. And, I can't express that, enough to the group that, my father in particular, as a disciplinary, as the head of the household, he may not have vocalized it, but he definitely shown it. So that's one of the things that, stood out to me about being a PK, because I always fell into the notion, okay, PKs are bad, I'm gonna be bad. And that was my mindset. If that's what, we're supposed to be, then I guess I'm gonna get away with it. And so, life happens, and, things happen that slow you down. And you get time to reflect, you get time to meditate and study the word more, and understand, the why behind the discipline, the why behind the actions. And so that's where I stand in regards to that.
Okay, that's a good segue to question number 4.
All right. Well, just before we get to question 4, Jareen just gave you a shout out. She said, "That's a great question, Mommy." It's very good. Yeah. All
Like,
right, great. Let me say, Daryl, that your dad is in love with you all, man. I'm telling you, I had the privilege to serve with him at Reseda. And one of the things that was so apparent to me was how much he loves and values all of you all. And I felt like I had known, your dad, but that was a side of him that I didn't know. So it was so wonderful to see how his countenance, his demeanor, his mood, his temperament, how all that would change when he'd be on the phone with you, and so I just want to tell you, man, that was just a wonderful thing to see, and kudos to Dr. Winrow. All right, so let's push on. Our time is slowly but surely getting away from us, so let's see what this next question is. All right, Fee, can you give us this next question, which would be question 4?
Yes. So, Gerald, like I said, this is a segue. What you said is a segue to question 4. So, have you been able to get past some of the less than ideal experiences you encountered as your your youth, and if so, how did you do it?
Well, I'll start. Some of my less than ideal experiences, how I got through those were simply just because of family. My drama it felt like my drama actually drew us closer together. I always tell my wife, I never pictured my family as a close-knit group. Not like she is. Like, she'll talk to her mom every day.
Okay.
She'll talk to her siblings, every day, her dad every day. Whereas, I'll go weeks without talking to my siblings at times. As a matter of fact, she talks to my family more than I talk to my family. And a lot of that is career, stuff that just takes my time or whatnot. But a lot of the experiences that I went through that, caused trauma or drama or whatever the case may be, it was my family that, met with me. They, sat with me, they prayed with me, they encouraged me to worship more. They encouraged me to strengthen my relationship with God, maybe not directly, but indirectly, looking at, some of the things that they've done, and just in regards to, their family and how they've galvanized their family or whatnot. It was really, I would say, not detrimental, but the word I'm looking for, instrumental. It was really instrumental in, who I am today, and, how I prioritize meditation and prayer and alone time, and really just becoming, a better man is what I always pray to be, is, just make me a better man, better than the man I was the day prior. And a lot of that is, I see my dad, taking walks in the morning and working. And so I try to emulate that with my own, devotional time or whatnot.
Okay.
Well said. Well said. Ladies?
Excellent. Excellent.
Geraldine and Thurka, you want to chime in about those experiences?
I would probably say, when I went to college, that was probably one of the most biggest challenges that I had, because that was really the first time in my life that I really dealt with worldly people, like people who didn't really have a strong Christian foundation. And so that was really an eye-opening experience. And I had never been in a situation where those that were around me didn't have my best interest at heart, but yet their best interest was priority. So all of that put me in difficult situations at times. And I think what allowed me to get through that really was that foundation of being able to go to church and constantly being reminded of really how I was raised, and that the way that we were raised created this this conscious this sense in my mind of, okay, is that right? Is that, should I do this? Should I do that? And it allowed me to kind of have this natural checks and balances. But I think ultimately it just came down to my relationship with God and really developing my own personal relationship. I think as we got older, it was really, as we were younger, it was really about what our parents were doing for us in terms of, taking us to church, and you need to participate in this and do this and do that. But once I was living on my own, it really was about my personal commitment, my personal relationship with God, and understanding why He needed to be in my life. As I pursued, more professionally, um, and just dealing with a lot of, whether it's racism, microaggressions, you name it, which is a whole nother conversation. It really revealed this relationship that I have with my mother as my spiritual counselor. And we haven't talked a lot about the first ladies in our lives, but my mom, just her quiet strength and her ability to recognize when I really need to talk, and when she really needed to pause for a moment and listen and provide me a spiritual perspective on what I was dealing with. I think that has been absolutely indispensable in regards to my ability to overcome anything that I've dealt with from a very young age.
I totally agree with everything that has been said, and such a great question. And as I was reflecting, I think one of the major things through my childhood is racism was very overt for me back then. And my father was military, so we moved from place to place, but we landed in Bossier City, Louisiana, and my parents worked hard all their lives, and so we ended up, of course, just like Sister Lane was saying, in this nice neighborhood, which of course afforded us opportunities because of their hard work and sacrifices. So my brothers and I ended up integrating the high school that we went to, and so just being thrown into that situation and having so many things became apparent to me then, but because of God that had been instilled in us, because of the self-confidence and because of the self-esteem that my parents and my mother just poured into us. You're just as good as anybody else. You can do this. You've got God, and with God, you can just make it happen. So we really felt like we could just make it happen because that had been instilled in us. But that time period in my life just showed me so many things, because my brother, who is 4 years older than I am, he was treated a little differently there as a Black male than even myself as a Black female. So it was just interesting going through that time period and building up who we are. But because of who we had been shaped to be, we were able to roll through those times. And I think because of the love, I just can't talk about the love that was in our family. So the love that we had for each other, always kept us going, because we had each other to build us up and move us on to other heights. I mean, we became presidents of clubs, Letterman, and all of this stuff, all while even bringing friends to church. So it was a very unique time that really opened my eyes to a lot, but helped me see the parenting style and helped me to be the parent that I am.
All right.
Mhm.
Well, guys, our time is up tonight. We appreciate you. That time just flew by,
Mhm.
and we value so much some of the topics and subjects that we covered tonight, and we appreciate your kindness and your candor. In this podcast, we're not trying to necessarily build Rome in a day or solve all the world's problems, but we do want to start a dialogue, start some conversation. So hopefully, those adult children that are working through some of the things we've talked about tonight, hopefully, you're going to get started on your path, to being at peace and working to improve in some of those areas where our parents certainly did the best they could. So, to our guests, Geraldine and Therica and Daryl, thank you so much tonight.
Thank you for
Uh,
the encouragement.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sister Geraldine, we didn't even talk about your folks in Southwestern and your mom and a blanket. So
Yes.
we'll have to talk
Yes.
about that at another day. But you all have a wonderful evening. And again, to our guests tonight, we want to invite you to join us, the Figueroa congregation. We worship there on Sundays at 10 o'clock. Our Bible class is at 8:50. I think that's going to change in June for a little while, but for now, you can check us out at that time. So again, we're so grateful to have had your presence on tonight. To those of you who are watching us this evening, we're grateful for your time. Have a wonderful evening. God bless, and we'll see you back on next week as we're working through our second quarter LA Family Life. Take care, everybody. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.